Now, I wanted to go back to the builds for a second, because one of the things that I have seen is while a lot of people use the packages that we provide or other providers provide, there's still a fair number of people who want to build from source themselves. Is there any advice you could give them?
If we would speak about Percona products, each of our product in GitHub has build script, which we use for our build process, and everyone can use the script. They are done in the same way, so they have just exactly the same flags. So using these build scripts, you can install dependencies, get source code, create source packages, create binary tarballs, create binary packages for any platform we support.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the HOSS Talks FOSS. This week's episode, I'm here with Evgeniy Patlan. Hi, Evgeniy. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm okay. Thanks.
So Evgeniy works for Percona, and he is the manager of the build and release team. So he's out there making sure that all of our builds and releases are done properly. And I figured it would be really good to talk to him a little bit about what he does in that group, maybe talk a little bit about his background, and also talk a little bit about the work he's doing in his local community around open source. So we'll get to that in a second. So Evgeniy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, my background, originally I'm from Chernihiv and studied here in Chernihiv Technological University. And then I joined Percona almost 6 years ago and worked there as a build engineer, building RPMs, depths, compiling all our sources, making a CI/CD pipeline and automating these builds. So all our products are connected with me.
Yeah, that's a lot of builds because we support quite a few platforms. How many platforms do we have? We have a lot, right?
In general, currently we support 3 CentOS Red Hat systems. It's 6, 7, 8. And we support 3 Debian systems. It's Debian 9, 10, and 11. And Ubuntu LTS 18.04 and 20.04.
Yeah. So, and that's for each one of the products needs each one of those as well.
Yeah.
So right there, you've got 8 different operating system versions, and then you have to test every product that we have and all the versions of those products. So for those who don't know, like if we are supporting multiple versions, let's say of MySQL, like MySQL 5.7, MySQL 8, all of those need to be tested as well.
But first of all, it should be built, and it's my work.
Well, right, built and then tested.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of building, right? And you mentioned setting up a lot of automation for that. Maybe talk to us a little bit about the automation that's set up. What are we using? What's our stack that we use to do our automation for builds?
We use Jenkins for our builds. We create different CI/CD pipelines for these builds. And what's interesting, we have a few Jenkinses. As I remember, it's 13 Jenkins master servers. And the main part of them are using AWS Spot instances. So we don't know when this master server can go down. And we just got notification in 2 minutes before server will go down, and we need to run use server for it. And we succeeded with this because we unmount partition, start a new server, and mount partition to a new server with all Jenkins information. And it takes less than 2 minutes.
So wait, so what you're saying is since we're using Spot instances, instances can go up and down. If the Spot instance goes away, do we get a regular instance, or do we try and bid for another spot?
Another spot.
Oh, okay. So we're right now running everything through the Jenkins process with spot instance running. The spot instance notifies us, hey, you're going to go down in 2 minutes or whatever, and then we quickly go bid on another spot instance and then mount the EBS
Yeah.
volumes for all of that onto the other box and start rebuilding.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And
Wow.
everything is automated.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. And so is the automation for bidding on the new spot instance and moving everything out, what's that built in?
What do you mean?
So is that part of the Jenkins pipeline there, or did we write something custom for any of that?
It's done in Cloud Formation, AWS.
Cloud Formation. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so, when we're talking about like builds like this and going through the build process, every, like we talk a little bit about, these different platforms we have. There's also different hardware that can be, built against as well. Now, right now, we're doing things for Intel and x86, but there's a lot of discussion around ARM-based processors as well.
Yeah, and it's really a tough question because currently we are not doing any ARM builds, and it's pity because all of us struggling doing this, and I hope that very soon, we'll have at least test builds for it, because just making a build is not a difficult task, but the software which we build should be optimized for ARM, and that's the main question. Are we ready to optimize it?
Well, I mean, it's not only being ready, it's also adding a new architecture like that doubles the work, right? So if everything's built for x86 and we're doing 8 different operating systems and we've got 5 different products we're building, right? So we've already got 40 builds that we're doing then. If we're going to do that now, not only for x86, but also for ARM, then all of a sudden you jump to 80.
Yeah, but you also told that we have 5 products, but it's not true because, for example, for PostgreSQL we have, as I remember, 8 components and added 8 more.
Yeah. So I use 5. I just picked 5.
Yeah,
but because each of the components needs to be built separate as well. So I mean, literally, there's hundreds, and so doubling that is quite. It's not necessarily easy. So as these build processes are running and as we are increasing, it becomes more difficult to keep, visual eyes on all of them. So what sort of monitoring do you do for the build processes? And, when something goes wrong with the build process, what do you do? How do you get in and fix it?
Well, in general, there is such term in DevOps world called ChatOps. So once the build is failed, it sends us just message that, hey, the build has failed, and we are going and check logs for it. So for each build, it might even take more than a day to figure out what's going on and fix the issue.
Oh wow!
And
so I mean, it
would be tough.
Right. Yeah. So it tells you, hey, so you get a Slack message. It's integrated into Slack, and it will say, my build is broken. Build whatever, 1432. You should go look at this. And you go out, and then you'll debug that particular issue, and it could take you a day or two to figure out what was going on with it.
Yeah. And sometimes it just we forgot add in some maybe a comma in code or just forgot to set tag. So set it and build is in progress. For example, Percona server for MySQL build takes 3.5 hours for all these platforms. So we couldn't just monitor it.
Yeah. And so as those builds happen, just for the one, if something happens in the middle, then you've got to go back, debug it, obviously, and fix it. But it's not just about the build process failing. There's also the automated testing that has to occur after the fact, right?
Yeah, we have automated package testing, which is done by our QA team, and still we need to add more improvements there because it would be great to create a really big continuous delivery pipeline which will test everything automatically once build is done. But currently we cannot just say, hey, packages are okay, we can proceed with release. We need to check
Right.
functionality, and we need still to integrate this.
Yep. And I mean, like, so that process, I mean, it's pretty big and complicated, and there's a lot of different automations that we have built in to the entire process there. And you mentioned that, you know, you attended the technical university in Chernihiv, right? So your
Chernihiv,
local city there. And you are actually active in that open source community. There's tell us a little bit about the Chernihiv cluster.
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I don't remember exactly, in Chernihiv, a few UIT companies decided to build a local community because we are quite a small city, just 300,000 people. But we are not far from our capital, Kiev, just 150 kilometers. So you can understand that everyone goes to Kiev to work. And these companies decided to keep IT specialists in our native city, and they created Chernihiv IT cluster. The purpose of this cluster is to build community and to help students in the university to learn something new, because you know the program in university is quite, let's say, outdated, because they're learning how to work with maybe Pascal. And while I was studying, I wrote some code in assembler. So it's really outdated, and in university it's tough to update the program. And the main question is to have good lectures, good professors. And that's why IT cluster decided to help them. And it's awesome that this year Percona become a participant of this cluster, and we already performed DevOps crash course for students, and not only for students. There were people from Kiev, from Slavutich, and it was awesome because we talked about DevOps previously. In Chernihiv, there was only 2 talks about DevOps, maybe in last 4 years, and one of these 2 talks was mine talk. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important that, like, I think you're right. A lot of folks who come out of university now, they have a good foundation from an academic perspective, but a lot of times it doesn't translate to real world work.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
think it's good to try and bridge that gap and bring more practical experience, and help update some of the curriculum that they have. Now, you just gave a series of talks last week, correct?
Yeah, there were 6 talks during this DevOps crash course, and 4 of them were done by Percona staff. And 2 more talks were done by Chernihiv company Agile Vision. And it was really great because all of us just added something new to the previous speaker. And yeah, it was interesting. Our students got certificates that confirms that they participated in it. And you see, I saw the real interest in students' eyes. And is the main idea of this course.
And so what specifically was your section on? Like, can you give us maybe like a little bit of a background into that?
Well, I was talking about creating CI/CD pipelines in Jenkins because it's the main part of DevOps work. And I found out while interviewing people that not all of them knows how it worked previously, what is the difference between scripted and declarative pipelines, how to build them correctly. And that's why I decided to talk to about this. And it requires not a lot of knowledge for students because everyone can build it. And I just showed how to make a declarative pipeline with some bash code.
Okay. All right. There you go. There you go. I mean, that's interesting. You're giving that foundation to, people who don't necessarily get it, which is good. And, helping those, students maybe come up and get some skills that they wouldn't otherwise see. So that's always a very good positive. Now, I wanted to go back to the builds for a second, because one of the things that I have seen is while a lot of people use the packages that we provide or other providers provide, there's still a fair number of people who want to build from source themselves. Right?
Yeah. And it's really a tough question.
So maybe give us a couple pointers for those who are interested in building from source. Is there any advice you could give them?
If we would speak about Percona products, each of our product in GitHub has build script, which we use for our build process, and everyone can use the script. They are done in the same way, so they have just exactly the same flags. So using these build scripts, you can install dependencies, get source code, create source packages, create binary turtles, create binary packages for any platform we support. And it's easy. Maybe a year ago, I created a blog post about how to build Percona server for MySQL using this build script. And for last maybe 2 or 3 months, I got a lot of requests about how to build Percona XtraDB cluster. And my answer was, hey, just take this link to build script and use this blog post. But I see that still I need to explain how to use it. And maybe this month I would create one more blog post about how to build Percona XtraDB cluster. And it would really help, because I got maybe 5 or 7 questions about it.
Yeah. So there is a build script out there for those who are interested in building from source. If you use that, it will give you all of the commands, and you can modify as you need or adjust from that. It gives a pretty good starting point if you're interested. And I think that's a good advice to start with something that's there. And we'll put a link to your blog in this video and in the description, so people can get to it if they're interested in learning how to build from source themselves. Evgeniy, I wanted to thank you for coming on and chatting with us today. I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time talking to us a little bit about the build and release process here. Also, a little bit about the local community that you are building in your local city. But appreciate the time.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm really happy to participate in this session.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Wow, what a great episode that was. We really appreciate you coming and checking it out. We hope that you love open source as much as we do. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, tune in to next week's episode. We really appreciate you coming and talking open source with us.